All right. Hello and welcome to this webinar, Personality Science. I am your host and presenter, Tyler Borders, and thank you in advance here for giving me your time and attention as I cover some material that is really very near and dear to my heart personally, and certainly is critical and important to Carnegie and how we think about branding. This is the first part in a five-part series. You will hear people much smarter than I am on my team in the following sessions as we explore brand research, brand strategy, creative, and then brand activation and deployment in greater depth. So I would encourage you to check those out to follow. But today, my job is to expand upon our personality science, the power of personality, and sort of our methodology and how we think and deliver upon good branding for institutions all over the country to help drive reputation, increase awareness, and ensure that we're connecting with the right students by delivering the most authentic, most accurate, personalized messaging possible. And I want to, hopefully in a half an hour, I've got a lot of content to get through here. Hopefully I can achieve most of that, and I will try to be as brisk and quick as possible. This is throwaway material, in my opinion here. I hate intros, but my team says I have to do this because they're doing it. I'm Tyler Borders. I'm the Chief Brand Officer here at Carnegie. My personality, my archetypes, which I will unpack further, the meaning behind this and how we use this to reach student segments, which is more important, more apropos here. But my personality is this. It's blue archetype, yellow archetype, and pink archetype in that order. Those are my scores out of 20. And we derive this by taking our own Carnegie Chem personality test that yields our own personal psychographics, just as we do with student segments as well. So the software tells me that I am the poised and confident visionary. I promise you that I did not write that. The software provided that. Overly complimentary, I suppose. I've been at Carnegie for 10 years and was formerly the co-founder of a company called Dartlet in higher education, where we pioneered our psychographic branding methodology. And I have been working on this really for my career. So the past 20 plus years, I have been in branding in the agency space and about 14 years in higher education in total. So let's get into the good stuff. And I want to start here and answer this question: what is brand? You know, brand is this sort of ubiquitous term that everybody says, right? We've all been saying it for as long as we can remember. Why don't we actually define it? What does this word brand actually mean? And I've been working on that for a long time and presenting and thinking and talking and writing about this idea of brand. And I have a one-word definition for you that I think is the very best one out there that I want to unpack for you. And it is this: brand, in a word, is reputation. It is what everybody else thinks and feels about you. How do your collective audiences, when they think about you, what do they think about? What do they feel? What is the emotional response in the hearts and sort of intellectual response in the minds of your audiences? It's reputation. Let's take that further. It's perception. You could even say gut feeling. And that emotional response is incredibly valuable. What's interesting when I think about brand as reputation is that they, the collective they, whoever your audience's stakeholders may be, certainly students, parents, faculty, staff, administration, donors, the community, certainly all of those stakeholders, the collective they decide your brand. It's an interesting concept because we work awful hard at branding, storytelling, understanding how to build a story, build a communications campaign, deploy that campaign in order to build your brand value, right? But everybody else decides, right? When we test reputation, right, we're pulsing the market and we're asking, what do you think and feel and believe about our client, right? Our job as brand builders, your job, and part of the brand sort of supply chain, the brand continuum, is to ensure that the perceptions out there are as accurate as possible, right? The stories we're telling, are they authentic? Are they accurate? And are we advancing the right reputation in the market? And I want to talk more today with personality science about how we do that. how we work to ensure that we are building accurate and authentic reputation for your campus, your brand. This is the big idea. I guess it's a big idea that I had almost 20 years ago. And I wrote about sort of the origins of this idea, and I won't go there today for time's sake. But the big idea is this. What if your brand, any brand, but take obviously your campus, your institution, what if your brand was human? And I mean literally, right? So the big idea was, what if any brand of any size, any shape, were treated like a singular human being, one person in the room? What is that person like? What are they like on their best day? How would we describe and define that person? What is that person never like, right? What is never true and authentic of that person, that personality? What about on some day in the future? Who does that person want to be? What if we made brands human, humanized brands? And what if personality, then, human personality is the key to it all? So spoiler alert, this is exactly how Carnegie, with our personality science, approaches branding. We turn brands into human beings, and we restore and or define personality. And we use as many stakeholders as possible on campus to answer that question. Who are you? You take your college or university, we answer the thesis question, we ask you the question, who are you? And the answer to that unlocks a lot of solutions and a world of potential for you. So let's go deeper. This is an important image in my career because this is now almost 2 decades old, and I mean literally this image. And I have asked from stages and on webinars and really all over for a long time, audiences, I asked them, who is this? Do you know who this is? From the back of his head. And what's amazing to me, that spanning many generations, varied demographics in every room, the answer is usually, and I'll even do quantitative polls live. I'll launch a poll. I just did this at a conference a couple of weeks ago. And it's usually about 90+% awareness that this is Dennis Rodman, NBA Hall of Fame basketball player, one of the greatest rebounders of all time. And I think one of the strongest brands of all time. He played in the late 80s and the 90s into the early 2000s. But still, to this very day, almost everybody knows who this guy is. And that's a pretty incredible feat when you think, one, of awareness, right? Just sheer awareness. And then two, affinity, right? Like, how do you feel about Dennis Rodman? And does it align with his intention for you, right? That's reputation building, that you would think and feel and respond accurately about Dennis Rodman as intended. And when I ask that question, it's pretty incredible. People say, yeah, he's bold and daring and rebellious and disruptive and, hardworking and exudes freedom and has this attitude. And it's exactly right. It's exactly authentic. It's clear. It's accurate. It's emotive. It's personalized. It's actually archetyped. And I can almost think of no better archetype, no better brand than that of Dennis Rodman, now going 30, 40 years strong. And what Dennis has done, whether he knew it or not, is he used archetyping to craft a very focused, very clear, very emotive brand. Now, Dennis didn't have Carnegie's archetype system, so we use 9 colors. Each color is a personality type, an archetype. A universal truth, a character type that everybody sort of knows universally and can relate to and understand. Dennis didn't have that, but if he did, he would know he was using the silver archetype as his lead archetype. Silver, the rebel, daring, boldness, freedom, breaking the rules. He was leaning into the silver archetype personally. I would also say he probably used some orange archetype, the creative, right? Eccentric, creative, artistic, different. You think about Hollywood, though. As you zoom out, I'm not sure if you know who this is, but this is Brad Pitt, for one, playing Tyler Durden on the movie The Fight Club. One of my favorite movies, came out when I was in high school. This was big for my generation. And you notice the attitude, the archetype being embodied here by Brad Pitt as Tyler Durden is very, very similar to that of Dennis Rodman. In fact, both of these characters, one in real life, authentically, and then the other in a movie, is again a perfect expression of a silver archetype, embodying these ideas that we instinctively know and understand and feel, right? We don't need a paragraph to describe it. We feel it, this attitude, this archetype. So what is an archetype? I've said the word a few times. It's fundamental to Carnegie's brand practice and our methodology. But as a definition, it's this. An archetype is an original pattern or an idea or a character type that has a universal quality. Doesn't really matter. It transcends demographics, transcends cultures, transcends age, even what country you live in, transcends language. An archetype is an idea that we just get it. Anybody can watch Fight Club. Anybody can watch Dennis Rodman. And they just instinctively, intrinsically get the attitude, the emotion that archetype embodies. And this is incredibly powerful for branding. And the best brands in the world understand this principle and they utilize it. Good brands are focused, consistent, and emotive. You can easily, quickly get the personality. And there's that word again, right? Brands that struggle try to be all things to all people, or they don't know their DNA. They have never defined their personality. They haven't even thought of those terms, right? And so they're just, it's the message of the day. And lots of people are involved adding their voice to messaging. And suddenly years go by and they go, we don't know who we are. And our audiences don't seem to get us. Our reputation isn't really aligning with our intention. And you step back and go, did you even know what your intention was from the beginning? In branding, psychographics, the term I'll use many times today, almost synonymous with personality, is a critical piece to this equation. And was a big unlock many years ago as we began building this science, again, that we call personality science. So archetyping, it's just one piece of the equation in our research program. We have dozens of pieces, but archetyping is central. 9 colors I mentioned, and this is a research tool that if you're in a workshop with us, you would interact with cards that have more detail than this. But it is one research tool in a workshop that would coexist with many other tools in our program. But it's a fundamental one when it comes to defining personality and answering the question, who are you? So as I said, 9 colors, we've color-coded it because it's sticky for your institution, right? So our clients begin to think and talk in color because our clients bring their campuses through our workshops. And again, they're yielding the answer to who are you to us. So by the time we're through the couple of months of work, everybody's ready to, they want the answer. What was the answer for who we are? And they know and they think on our color model, right? So the color coding is very sticky, but it's also very predictive, right? It's very powerful. This is as much a research tool as it is a marketing and brand creative tool. So 9 colors, as I mentioned, Dennis Rodman, Brad Pitt, as Tyler Durden, the rebel. Certainly a lot of rebel in that brand, maybe some orange over there. The creative, the creator. You think of the pink, which I have some in my personality, the sophisticate. So that would lean into, it takes many forms depending on how you define it for your institution and the work. But the pink might be elegant, refined, sophisticated, aesthetic, idyllic. The maroon, the competitor, hardworking, gritty, tough. Purple, the supporter, kind, caring, compassionate, generous. Red, the entertainer, right? Enthusiastic, positive. You get the idea. We use 9. Now, it's important for me to say, no archetype is alike. Meaning, blue does not mean blue, right? We have purple defined for various clients in their solution, in their brand strategy. But purple does not mean one thing. You bring the definition, the fine-grained definition to how your purple is expressed on your campus. What purple means, for example, to your brand. If there is green, the explorer, right? Sort of that NASA expanding new horizons, on the go, adventurer idea, right? You define how that greenness comes to life in your brand. And we do that work on campus in workshops. So it's not like there's just 9 colors and we're done. The outcomes are actually infinite, right? No 2 brand solutions have ever been alike in all of my work in this field, right? Typically, there are 3 archetypes that result of a first, second, and a third for each brand solution with our clients. It's a first, second, and third that emerge to build a personality type. That personality then comes with storylines that we build on campus that drive all of the work to follow. I use the word psychographics. This is a term we've certainly pioneered and brought to life in higher education. But we think about psychographics, and the best way to sort of capture this is to think about it in contrast to demographics, right? Demographics, I'm sure you know what that is. We use it all the time in higher education when you buy lists, right, for your search by. Demographics are sort of the what, right? So like it's data that your credit card is yielding every time you make a purchase and go eat at Chipotle. Like we know that your household ate at Chipotle. We know that you live at such and such address in this neighborhood. We know that the household drives this car, that you are this age, your income level, right? These sort of macro stats. And those are useful. And I'll explain in a moment how we think about demographics, because it is useful. But what's more important is psychographics, far more important. And it's more difficult to get at these, right? So psychographics in contrast to demographics. Psychographics tell me why. So it gets at personality, motivation, desire. Why did a person actually make a decision? What do they want? Demographics can't give me that. Psychographics can, but you have to have a psychographic research baseline in order to get at those, right? We have that through our personality science and the system that I've been explaining here, our archetype model, our trait model, and all the other work that we do. What it is a psychographic baseline. Why does that matter? If I know the demographics about your student population that you're targeting, that's great. We know kind of how to reach them and the composition of the household. I don't know what to say to them, though. I don't know what they want to hear, what motivates them, what draws them, right? Psychographics give us that ability. Go back to the Dennis Rodman example. If I know there's a student segment that you are trying to reach, and our research program shows me that they're into the silver ideas. They like this attitude, this silverness, this rebellion, this daringness, that quality that we see in Dennis Rodman. If we uncover that exists in a population you're trying to reach, well, then we build creative and communication, authentic to your story, of course. And then we deliver that communication to that student segment. We call those student populations darts. And again, I will unpack this a little bit more as we go, but I want to set the stage for when I use the word psychographics, talking about this, understanding what drives a person, their personality, their motivation, their desires, differs from demographics. At the end of the day, it's feeling. I often say that feeling is the most important thing in all of branding, right? Because most decisions are made emotionally. Even for the most pragmatic person, research tells us, studies tell us that about 80 to 95%, depending on the study you lean into, of our decision-making is driven by emotions. So feeling, psychographics, right? Way more important than just the binary data. What does somebody want? What is somebody feeling? Can we understand it? Can we learn that? And can we measure it? Turns out, if you do this right and do it well, feeling is actually measurable. And we do this every day at Carnegie, understanding perceptions, understanding feelings. If, of course, you have a psychographic foundation, as I explained, to make that possible. And we do. The fundamental thesis question we are always asking in all of our work, all of the time, I guess the question that started it all for me, is who are you? I've said it once before, I think, in this presentation already. But this is the thesis. When we are thinking about your brand, your campus brand, your college, as a brand, remember, as a singular human being in the room with us, take the entire campus, the entire institution, and we say, who are you as a singular human being? The answer to that question, the personality of your institution, becomes the nucleus for all of the brand work, all of the storytelling, all of the planning that you should be doing from there. Who are you? We then ask that same question, who are you, of student segments. So literally through workshops on your campus, I won't go too deep into how we do this for competitive sake, but we are able to ask that fundamental question, who are you, to student segments. This is mixed method research. This involves qualitative workshops with students. This involves looking in the rears about 3 years into your enrollment cycles to understand who has matriculated to your institution, and then deriving the psychographics of the student segments that choose your institution. And we can do this in typically less than 60 days. We can get at this information and begin to connect what your audiences are drawn to with what your university personality, what it should be, what it ought to be, what story you ought to be telling. When we know the university personality and we know the student segment's personality and psychographics, we can then make connections between the two, build communication that builds a bridge between those two ideas. I like this quote. Now, I suppose it's my quote. Maybe that's why I like it, but I'll just say it because it's appropriate here. But your brand value, when you think about brand value, for us, it's the quality and the quantity of space that you occupy in the hearts and minds of your audience. Assuming, of course, you're lucky enough to occupy any space at all. And anymore in this environment, getting space, getting airtime in the hearts and minds of students is increasingly difficult. There's a lot of distractions, a lot of noise. It's a new generation. Attention span is limited. So when you're lucky enough to occupy space in the hearts and minds of your audience, then it's the quality and quantity of that space. Are they thinking about you, again, accurately, right? What is the reputation then held in the hearts and minds of your audience? And I want to break down how we think about audience segmentation. And it starts with a story out of Bend, Oregon. I was working with a client, my team and I, Stanford University, and I've taken stages with Jason Black to talk about this subject because he was really important for a lot of our intellectual property that we built and the solutions that we uncovered almost a decade ago now. I think we began working with them in 2015, but in 2016, we were in Bend, Oregon, and we were running a blitz, an enrollment and creative blitz, where we bring our team together with the client team to build all kinds of things, creative campaigns, enrollment strategy, whatever the need might be. And there was this huge blizzard in Bend, Oregon. It was a bad time. We should have checked the weather to congregate in Oregon, but nonetheless, there we were. And we couldn't even leave the house because the snow was like a foot thick, literally. And so we're, in the house and we had a break. And I remember Jason Black called me over and he showed me his demographics, his clustering that he was doing. They've always been very good, Jason and Brian and the team, at demographic segmentation. Again, the demographic part, right? They were using Nielsen Prism. So the composition of the class, what demographic segments were converting at a certain propensity. And he said something like this to me, like, I know how to find Stanford students demographically. Look at my Excel sheet. I know how to find them, but I don't know what to say to them. And what Jason was really saying, and I wouldn't have thought about it this way at the time either, was I know how to find them, demographics. We've been doing that for years, right? We can use demography and cluster them pretty easily. And I'm sure many of you do that. But I don't know what messages to send to them. Now that's psychographics. Again, what do they want? I can know where they are, but what do I say to them? And is that message, that personalized message, accurate and authentic to the university brand? Both of those things have to work in tandem. That's how our personality science works. I'll take you deeper into some of the mechanics of this, but when you think about fundamentals of branding, I like to think about sort of the simplest 1, 2, 3 list that I can. And this is appropriate to you, I can imagine, in any job that you might be in on campus, whether you're admissions, marketing, enrollment, student affairs, advancement, wherever you might be, you have a role as an ambassador to your brand, right? To furthering the brand story, reputation of the school. And so I give you these three that they apply to you, I can assure you, in whatever work it is you're doing on campus. And it's this: clarify the brand story. Know the brand story. That's number one. Right? Personality, psychographics at the center of that for Carnegie. That's how you clarify it best. Who are you? Define the personality to get at the story of the school. 2, locate the best prospects. Right? Literally, where are they? Who should we be spending our time and energy and resources and finances talking to? Where are they? Let's locate the very best prospects. Let's not just shotgun to an entire massive list. Let's try to locate the best prospects, and we can show you how. And then 3, deliver the right messages. That's audience segmentation. It's not one message fits all. When we clarify and build a brand story, they said there are typically 3 archetypes, 3 storylines that lock in and found that story. And then we can deliver those uniquely to different student populations or alumni populations, as the case may be. Clarify the story, locate the best prospects, deliver the right custom messages. Let me take you in a brief experiment and a little bit of a trivia into demographics. Let's back up a little bit. The demographics, right? The easy stuff. You work with them all the time, the binary stuff. Now, they're not valueless, right? I hope you're using some demographic clustering and some analyses here. But I want to show you how these can be used practically with an example. If you were to say to me, Tyler, I'll give you just a few demographics, and I want you to provide some value for my clustering. In other words, help me identify populations that we should target, finding those right prospects. I would give you 3. You said, okay, just 3 demographics to provide value for your clustering efforts so that you can find the right audiences. It's actually the 3 demographic topics you don't broach at a dinner party or over Thanksgiving. 3 things we typically don't talk about, and it's these 3 demographic factors: politics, income, and religion. Politics, income, and religion. To make this more palpable for you, imagine an audience of 1,000 people, and I'm on stage and I say, hey, everyone stand up, and I want all my conservative, upper middle class Baptists, politically conservative, upper middle class income, Baptist faith, all congregate in the back left corner, please. Right. Then I say, I want any of my liberal, upper middle class, keep the income bracket the same, agnostics. I want all of you in the back right, form a big group. With just those 3 demographic factors, just 3, I've created value for you from a targeting perspective, right? So if I were to begin to ask questions of the conservative upper middle class Baptists, I'd begin to find commonality. There would be convergence in terms of how they think, what they want. Some archetype commonality might emerge. There would be dissonance for sure. It's just 3 demographics here, but there would be some useful commonality. If I likewise went to the liberal upper middle class agnostics, asked them the same questions, I begin to find convergence about how they think, about how they react, about how they feel. Their psychographics would begin to have some alignment, right? Now imagine that when you think about your own student targeting. This is the idea behind demographic clustering. Now, demographics are important. There's some value, but as I've said, psychographics are even more important. And I want to show you exactly how with our own research that we have conducted. As I said, demographics only get you so far. Psychographics gets you even further. I'm going to give you a little trivia. I wish I could see and hear you. Obviously, I can't. I throw candy out from the stage to the winners. We don't have that option. I apologize. But some quick trivia. And I want to set the stage here and ask you, how predictive are the following factors in determining someone's communication preference? In other words, take these three examples, three Nike advertisements, right? They are written very intentionally. They look different from one another. They're written different. They're possibly targeting a different audience. Still in the athletic space, it's all still Nike, but three very different ads, right? You have an opinion between the three. If I were to ask you, which ad do you like the most? Which ad do you have the most affinity toward? Which are you most attracted to? If you had to pick A, B, or C, which would you choose? If that's the basic question, imagine that at scale, okay? Now, think obviously in the context of higher education. You're sending advertising all the time. Digital ads, print mediums, email communication, whatever it might be. We are sending marketing material, creative campaign work, or advertising a lot, right? So that's the obvious application here. If that's the question, which do you prefer among those three ads? My ask to you is, using just demographics for now, how predictive are the following factors? Gender being first. Meaning, if I know your gender, do I have an edge in guessing which ad you would prefer, A, B, or C? If I knew your gender at scale, right? Turns out there's an 8% edge. And we've learned this through our own studies into the topic. If we know someone's gender, there's actually an 8% edge that we could determine which communication preference that person would have. How about race? What if we know the demographic factor of race? Is there a predictive edge in knowing someone's race and determining their communication preference? Turns out there is. It's 4%, roughly 4%. Now, to keep going, I'll make this quicker. Income offers us a 6% predictive edge in knowing what somebody would prefer in their communications. Religion, 4%. Student type, less than 1%. Regional geography, less than 1%. Now, how about this? Hopefully you see the shift by now. Those were demographics. Here are psychographics, right? What if I know that same person's personality, core aspects of their personality? Could be our system, could be any valid personality construct. Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, MBTI, DISC, whatever it might be, or Carnegie's. But what if I know that? Is there a predictive edge in determining someone's communication preference, whether they will like A, B, or C in those communications? And the answer is there is, and it's 15%. It's the largest edge of any single factor. If I know your personality, I have a 15% edge in knowing whether you'd prefer A, B, or C. Another way to think about that is I can know 4 demographic factors: gender, race, geography, and your student type. And still, I have a better predictive value if I just know your personality. But what's more is it aggregates. So now if I know your personality and demographic factors, this begins to build. And the more I know about you, the more I can understand what it is you will prefer in communications. The obvious application here, I hope you're seeing it, is when we do this work for your student populations, we know what communications we should send to them with the greatest chance of affinity and conversion. And I'll show you case studies at the end of the presentation to sort of bring to life how this works and the results that we get from this, right? One message doesn't fit all. Audience segmentation is critical. Understanding audience populations, defining your brand story and personality, and connecting the two is the name of the game. That's our personality science at work. I thought this was interesting, and I wanted to bring this to life here for you. We launched a survey just last fall, 2024. We reached 142 presidents, VPs of all sorts, and senior staff across higher education. And we asked them a variety of questions. I just wanted to show you a few of the answers that I thought would be apropos here. But we asked marketers specifically, what areas of marketing do you need vendor assistance with, if anything? And the number one answer was market research. The number 3 answer was audience segmentation. Pretty fascinating. Market research. We want insights, we want certainty, we want data, we want metrics. And then audience segmentation. I actually love to see these answers because obviously we're passionate about the work that we do. And this outcome is exactly right. We are in an era where we need to increase certainty, increase specificity, and understand our audience segments with far more fine grain than in years past. You see brand focus as well at number 7 is important to marketers. We asked enrollment folks, same question. What areas of enrollment do you need vendor assistance with, if any? And again, number 1, market research, right? What's going on in the market? How are we perceived, right? What markets are most viable for our institution? And then number 2, audience segmentation. We are in a season, we are in a moment where audience segmentation, personalized messaging to different audience segments is no longer optional. It's absolutely vital. And then the third question, industry trend focus. So here we asked, where is your institution paying attention in terms of trends? Number 1, demographic cliff. I mentioned it earlier, right? There's a decreasing pool of student-bound population going to college, as we all well know and have heard about at nauseum with demographic cliff upon us this year. But then number 2, increased need for personalization in marketing. I would dovetail that with audience segmentation. We have a demographic cliff that is shrinking the college-bound pool, right? Shrinking the size of the pool. So we have to be more efficient, understand who to target, who is most likely to convert based on prior precedent. And then once we know that information, what do we say to them? Here's a zoom in on that, right? It kind of paints a picture for you. Demographic cliff, and you're living it, I know. Demographic cliff, fragmented student attention, and we need to increase personalized marketing. We could not agree more here at Carnegie. Some other research I thought you would find interesting when it comes to our psychographics. We actually know how certain archetypes of students with a certain archetype, what kinds of communication they prefer and then least prefer. This is fascinating. So for example, if we know we have a student that is heavy maroon, and again, we yield this for our clients, we call them darts, and we build dart populations that we use, we embed into Slate, and we use for all of our communications, digital, print, Slate comms, search, and beyond. But if we have a maroon student, what's fascinating is we know that maroons prefer maroon. So it's hard to tell here, but that top line up and to the right, that indicates preference, right? Maroons want maroon communication. That makes sense, right? What's fascinating is maroons detest pink communication. See the dotted pink down and to the right? That means least like. So we know at Carnegie, if you have a maroon population, you should never, would never send pink archetype creative to a maroon population that will detest them, right? That will distract and not be effective for a maroon population. And we know everywhere in between as well, what to send, what not to send. We know that to a maroon population, maroon is gritty, tough, hardworking. That's maroon, right? Resilient. We know that you can send blue communication to a maroon. You see it in second place. That will not deter and detest and offend a maroon to send them blue, because blue, strength, confidence, power, achievement, that idea is actually sort of a cousin to maroon. And in our psychographic model, we have sort of complementary archetypes. Blue and maroon are certainly cousins. So we know that if you were to send blue to a maroon, you would still have some impact, still be effective. Let's look at red. We know that you can send red to, and should send, red communication. Red being enthusiastic, optimistic, funny, outgoing, those kinds of ideas. That's red archetype. Do not send yellow archetypal communication to a red. That does not work at all, as you can see from this chart. Yellow is innovator, ingenious, intelligent, transformative, sort of wizard, Google, Tesla, those ideas. Red doesn't want to see that. That's too heady, too intellectual for a red archetype. So just wanted to bring to light some of the science behind this. When we talk about personality science, we know what to do and we know what not to do but the psychographics have to yield those answers. Zooming out to put this into one slide for you, it's this: connect the dots. As I've said before, understanding the university personality, defining the personality psychographically of the institution, using your stakeholders to give us those answers, doesn't take long, typically a few months. Do the same thing with your student populations. We call those darts, and then connect them. So for example, if we know there is authentic maroon in your university personality, we are, of course, as I showed you on 2 slides ago, we are going to send maroon communication visually and verbally, how we write copy, what imagery we use, right? What video material we might send, right? Maroon will go to maroon. At the end of the day, personality science drives the right creative. And I underline right because this has been important in my career. In fact, I began as a creative. All of this sort of began because I wanted to find a better way to build the right creative, not just guesswork, not just creative that my client would like, making somebody laugh or making somebody cry. We're less concerned with whether you like it because like is subjective. What we believe is there's actually right creative. There's a right way to build creative for your institution. The right comes through, obviously now, the answer is psychographics. When we know your personality, then we know what is right or wrong creative. And there is wrong creative out there. And I come from this world. And too often I see creatives just making stuff, hoping they can sell it, hoping you like it. And then our clients pick a campaign, before we're involved, pick a campaign and it doesn't work, right? The campaign's not resonating. We come in and many times I've seen, it's just the wrong creative versus your institutional authentic personality, right? That's the magic. Pretty is not enough, right? Pretty is easy. We can all make nice, pretty things. Pretty campaigns, nice looking view books, pretty TV ads. It's fairly easy, but to build proper reputation, back to that word, what is brand reputation? What does everybody think and feel about you? To build the right connections between you and the audiences you want to reach, there is a right creative and there's a wrong creative. I want to show you some examples of the work that we have done for our clients. I won't unpack the psychographic solutions behind these, and I won't delve into why we made the decisions we made. All just to say, I wanted to show you some of the outcomes and that it's psychographically driven, right? We are never just making something. It's beautiful, right? I grant you that it's beautiful, and that's important too. We want it to be beautiful, but we also want it to be right. So all of this work is expressing a story that is fortified and founded in data and in metrics. Right? I'll move quickly. It's beautiful work, yes, but it's also right because we know the personality of our client. When it comes to shooting photography, this is some of our work. We don't just go snap photos. We take photos that are archetypally driven and founded in personality. Examples like these. Even when it comes to logo work, you see in the upper right, our Samford Bulldog. That is completely driven by the personality of Samford. There was a previous Bulldog and it was not working. It was not resonating. The reason, because it wasn't on personality. We restored personality to Samford, right? Discovered the authentic position Samford should take, and then built the Bulldog accordingly. How the Bulldog stands, how it looks, and then tested the market to ensure that the market sees the personality we intended in that Bulldog. That's literally how the dog was built. And the affinity and adoption was quick and it was widespread because it was on personality. A couple of case studies for you. I won't give the university name, but when we implement this personality science and this system, we get great results. For this private R1 in the West, increased year-over-year deposits using our psychographic personality program, 18% net deposits. Psychographic comms increased conversion with 17% better yield. There's that predictive value I told you about. So when it's darted, when it's psychographic, personality driven, it performs better. And then increased inquiry conversion on those darted names at 13% during App Gen. Here's a public R2, 17,000 students in the Midwest, increased search yield conversion by 30% in App to Enroll. Psychographic comms increased conversion, in this case, by 29% better yield when we infuse personality into the communication. And then year over year deposits up 6%. Psychographics. Personality. Understanding who you are. Understanding how to focus your personality, build a brand program around that focus, and then be consistent and emotive over time. Humanize and personalize your brand and send the right messages to the right students. I think I ran a little bit over time with this, but I thank you for listening. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me here at the link provided, and I'll answer any questions that I can for you. And again, I hope that you plug in for the remainder of the webinars to follow in this series. Thank you.